Right, well, we've got a couple of committee members who are either running late or won't be able to join us in person this morning. So we do have Nicole from the agency. Thank you for joining us. And
Jack's unloading heifers.
okay, good. Just before the session ended, I thought it'd be helpful for us to hear an update on the federal money. There may be an acronym, Nicole. This is money that was a USDA money that was to have come originally to 8 states, $220 million, I remember. And I think I remember something in the 30 to 31 range that eventually Vermont was hoping to get for farmers who had been impacted by bad weather, severe weather 2 years ago and 3 years ago. So we haven't had an update in a while. We were hearing regular updates and then hadn't heard anything. So thanks for coming over.
Thank you. For the record, Nicole Dubuque, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. So as Chair Durfee was describing, in December of 2024, in the continuing resolution, there was $220 million set aside for those 8 states. And out of that $220 million, Vermont was tentatively allocated $31.75 million. We have been since working back and forth with the Farm Service Agency, part of USDA, to write up a statement of work. So our grant agreement for the 31.75, and then also subsequently kind of in the middle of the negotiations, they mandated that the work plan actually be done before the grant could be signed. So that was kind of the first delay in this. I will tell you that to date, only one of the 8 states has an executed agreement, which is Alaska. I'm told that that is partially because they asked for a very small granting program that would only cover peony losses, like the flower.
What losses?
Peony, it's a perennial flower. Yeah. So yeah, so that's what I'm being told that their entire grant is for, and the rest of us are much more widespread. So it would be New England plus Hawaii. Right now, our statement of work is complete and our work plan is complete, and it has gone through all of our point people at FSA, and it sits with the Office of General Counsel for USDA right now. We're hopeful that they won't have a lot of edits for us because we've gone through so many channels within their agency already, but we have to wait and see what they say. And from there, we should be able to execute. And once executed, we would have access to, I think it's roughly $4 million of administrative funds, which would allow us to implement the work plan, create application materials, stand up the web platform, which we are, required to have. And we know that that's obviously the most convenient for folks to be able to apply online. And then we would be requesting at this point be 3 limited service positions to assist with the eligibility, outreach, and grants management for the 5 years that this grant will exist. So it'll be a 5-year grant to spend down the 31.75 million. So that's the status update. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about, if you're interested, where we landed with program framework. Okay, so the way this program will roll out will be in 2 phases. So phase 1 will be any producer this also covers timber, right? That had a loss due to a 2023 or 2024 weather event. It does not have to be the big floods. It can be any weather event that occurred in those 2 calendar years. They would be able to apply, and they would need to document their losses in the application. And the categories that we are able to cover are timber, infrastructure, market loss, bare ground practices, specifically those necessary to mitigate land loss, and future economic loss. So you'll have
timber, infrastructure,
market loss, future economic loss, bare ground practices.
Can you
Necessary, yes, necessary to mitigate land loss. Yes, I will describe all of them, and I also promise that I can send all this to you in an email if that would be helpful.
That would be helpful.
Yes, so let's start with timber. So to be eligible for timber, eligible timber losses must have occurred on private forest land. The applicant must be the owner of the property or lessee of the timber, including loggers on the land on which the timber is growing at the time of the weather event. The land must have had timber immediately on it before the weather event occurred and is suitable for growing trees. An application must be from an owner or lessee, including loggers, with a minimum of 10 contiguous forested acres. Timber losses must be due to a direct result of damage from the weather event. Damage includes main stem breakage, reduction of live crown to less than 30% breakage, the central leader or visible lifting or separating of roof plate. And then we go on to talk a little bit about the eligible payments. I will say, if you have follow-up questions on this particular category, Oliver Pearson at A&R has been with me all the way through, and this is not my area of expertise, but I should be able to help you on the rest of them. Infrastructure. So this is going to be on-farm buildings and above-ground irrigation, aquaculture infrastructure, on-farm roads, bridges, and culverts, plasticulture. Those could all be covered. Then we go on to market loss. So this is eligibility is limited to markets tied directly to the eligible producer's produced crops, including value-added products. The crop or product must have been a mature crop that could have spoiled or been discarded before or after harvesting due to market loss. So think like they had planned to participate in a farmer's market, or they had a contract where they were going to provide wholesale where they were going to provide wholesale produce, and then they couldn't because the weather event either wiped out where the farmer's market was going to be held, or for some other reason.
So, sorry, can I go?
Yeah.
So, in my area, and I think in many parts of the state, we had a really bad early frost one of those years. I think it was the second year and, the first year then. But what I recall is that things were started, but they weren't market ready. So my understanding was that this was going to protect those folks that had lost things that were starting to grow, but not ready to harvest. And it sounds like from your explanation, if they had frost damage at that early stage and it wasn't market ready, then tough luck, they can't apply?
So not tough luck. So it's just a
Okay.
different category. So you're
Okay.
talking about future economic loss.
Okay,
Which is
got it.
another
Okay,
category.
okay, perfect. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
and that's more for perennial crops where we're like, we know that if they replace the grapevine, they're
Yeah.
going to have a few years before they can even harvest,
Yeah.
let alone create.
It was an
another-
apple crop that I heard about that was just devastating lots.
Yes. All of those are in future economic.
Okay, perfect.
President Nelson?
Thank you. So as to, our field trip the other day to John McCann's vineyard, Greg Bird's orchard, future market loss, you couldn't sell those apples that year. John McCann has been 3 years regrowing his grapevine, so he's had terrific market loss, future market loss. Where does uninsured crops like corn, there was, terrific devastation to cattle feed crops and organic and conventional, not just corn, but hay crop losses. Is that covered under?
It's not going to be. So if there was an annual crop that was lost and it was uninsured, USDA has told us that they had stood up a couple programs. One was the SDRP. And then the other one was, I think they actually had some sort of feed program, and then they had a milk loss program. And I can send this committee more information on those programs, but they're telling us that this money cannot be to cover just the crop loss. It has to be the market loss or the future economic loss, which leaves a lot of those annual crops kind of out of this
Okay, so
sphere.
what about hay crop?
So hay would not be covered here. I think you could probably make an argument if you had the hay and it was salvageable and it was supposed to be sold, but then couldn't be sold for some reason, we could talk about that. I will say though, we are doing a few things to make sure that we get to in the weeds and have all the details before this launches. So one is we are going to ask for those limited service positions so we can have people answering phones, going out, working with farmers, taking photos, kind of understanding their overall situation to find out how we can have those things fit in these categories. And then also we have brought on a contractor who actually has a master contract with Vermont Emergency Management. They're called Tetra Tech. And they are working with us and they're also working with Maine to kind of establish our materials and make sure that we are covering our Vermont producers as much as we possibly can with this money. So I think that as we work through all the details and they develop the materials for how we'd actually work through eligibility with the applications, we could go into the weeds on some of those things.
Yeah, let's see.
So getting back to the A-land,
Mhm.
there were periods where we had so much rain. Maybe some people got a first cut in, but not everyone.
Mhm.
And then you couldn't get on to maybe late September for a first cut. And
Mhm.
in some cases, at that point, a lot of it had been folded over or died.
Mhm.
By not being able to access that crop due to the weather event or the condition of the soil,
Mhm.
none of that would be eligible,
Not by this,
not but.
because USDA is telling us that we can't cover it because it would be duplicative because they have other programs that would cover or has covered some of those losses. I'll go through and finish the categories. So we talked about market loss and then bare ground practices necessary to mitigate land loss. So to be eligible ground must have had a crop present at the time of the weather event in 2023 or 2024 and experienced a loss associated with that crop or livestock. Eligible bare ground practices to restore the land include but are not limited to costs associated with removing debris from farmland, grading, shaping, or leveling land, restoring conservation features such as diversion, land prep, including mowing and harrowing under damaged plants, adding nutrients to soil in areas of critical erosion risk, and planting and managing cover crops to prevent erosion. So I think that this could potentially help with having to remove that hay that couldn't be used, right? We could probably
But it's more geared for flood damage
Mhm.
that left debris.
It is. It is. And then we have the future economic loss. So future economic loss is a projection or prediction of the real economic losses that will be sustained for multiple years. Not all production or revenue losses due to weather events will have occurred during 2023 or 2024. So this could be future revenue loss that was realized after those years. Damages incurred during 2023 or 2024 are projected to have an impact on expenses related to losses of revenue for several years into the future. To be eligible crops include but are not limited to perennial crops that are produced in vineyards and orchards and crops that take multiple years to mature, such as Christmas trees, as an example. Eligible producers must have replanted or agree to replant the perennial or a similar perennial. An eligible loss is based on the years between planting and having a fully mature, harvestable, sellable crop, which varies by crop. So because there is the tree assistance program TAP through USDA, we would not be able to pay for the cost of replanting an apple tree, but we can pay for the revenue loss incurred from year 2 to year 7 until they have the apple mature and they're able to actually get to a full harvest. So
is that envisioning a scenario where the tree was damaged as opposed to where the tree itself was damaged? So does that envision a scenario where the tree itself was damaged as opposed to where trees killed the buds and didn't allow a crop in the fall?
right. So it could cover both, but it would be a different number of years that would be covered. And we would have, ag specialists out there to kind of determine what the case is. In a scenario where the tree is sat underwater for a long period of time and we've got root rot and we've got to completely replant the tree, we're talking 7 years. If the buds froze, that might be a year or 2 years, depending on how extensive the damage is. And if we're talking about vineyard, a vineyard where we lost grapes, that might be a couple years. Strawberries is 2 years, blueberries is 6. It's all over the place, but we have some solid data from UVM Extension and from other extension offices around New England that kind of let us know what that'll look like depending on what you're applying for.
And what was it for the vineyards, the vineyards? This particular vineyard, he had to cut his vines right down to ground level and let him start all over again.
Yeah. I think in the examples that we've been doing with USDA, we were looking at like 2 years before the vines would grow back to where they need to be. But I am not an expert in that, so it may differ, but depending on how, old the vine was to begin with versus if it needed to be replanted or just cut to the ground and what kind of grape. But all of that will be taken into consideration. So this is all when we're talking about phase 1, and phase 1 is designed to get every producer that applies and is eligible some sort of funding. So USDA did require that we do kind of a rateable reduction. We couldn't offer 100%, but we can do 95% up to a cap. So in the first phase, I believe, I want to make sure I get the numbers yet. We said that the cap is going to be $75,000. So like any producer that applies that has losses in these multiple categories could get up to $75,000. And then there's going to be a phase 2. And the phase 2 is specifically focused on infrastructure, and which will be rebuilding barns, roads, culverts, bridges, et cetera. And that cap is up to $750,000. So we're doing 2 rounds. If someone has a smaller infrastructure loss that they want to include and kind of encompass all of their losses in all these categories, they would apply in round 1. And if then we're looking at a larger infrastructure project, that's like more of a grant with multiple phases of reimbursement in round 2. I want to make sure that I give you all the information that I have now.
Well, can you, maybe you said this, but while you're just collecting your thoughts there, what's the soonest or the earliest that a Vermont grower could expect to receive a check?
So right now, the way the timeline is written, and that's if we get everything executed in the next month or so, is that the application will go live in fall of 2026. So we're talking like September, and the checks would go out for round 1, January 2027.
I know you have no control other than getting your paperwork in order, but again, we're talking about a frost, a heavy freeze that took place. It will have been nearly 4 years, and I don't know what the word is to describe how just astonishing to me that the federal government isn't willing to expedite help for growers.
Yeah, this was all supposed to happen, what, a year and a half ago, and then it got held back and almost clawed out.
April of 2025, it was supposed to be executed. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Chair, and I think our congressional delegation does as well. But, as I said, 8 of the 9 still are not executed.
So it's not just Vermont.
No, I think there's 8 congressional delegations that are frustrated over this. regardless of party. It was, I
Um,
was wondering if somebody did.
so once things are in a place where growers could start to do what they need to do, I'm sure you'll be letting everybody know that. We won't be here. So we won't be able to help with that, but you won't need our help, presumably.
So as I said, we do have a contractor who is Tetra Tech. They have a master contract with Vermont Emergency Management, and they're going to be doing a statement of work with us on this project. And they are professionals in outreach and making sure that we are reaching the target population for this. So our internal marketing staff are going to help, obviously, communication staff, and then this contractor. We're going to make sure that everybody is aware. We're planning on holding events so that people can come and get assistance, and having those limited service staff to help farmers get their application done.
Okay, you mentioned that FSA is involved. Is it gonna be flowing, the money gonna be flowing through them? Are they gonna be the ones issuing the checks or?
We are. Our business office is the one that are, going to be responsible for.
McCann will be notified at 1 o'clock. He sits right behind me.
Any other questions? And I will summarize this for you all so you have the information I talked about today. I think it'll be important as producers ask you to let them know.
Thank you for the update. And we'll hope that when we're back in January, things are actually on the same schedule.
Thanks for the hard work that y'all put into it and to stick to it and just keep forging ahead. I know it's been a lot of planning over there in your office as well.
You know, Chair, just for the edification of this committee, thank you, Nicole, for allowing that Oliver had more work on the forestry side of damage, but it just struck me that the ice storm of 1998, which some of you remember, was devastating the crown damage that with the government allowed. Those were the real issues. These rain events didn't necessarily accompany a lot of wind, but we've had a lot of winds where the breaking around the root ball where they flopped or tilted. And so there's a lot of mortality from that. But I don't expect a lot of work interruption, some spoilage of certain species of stain, which is a blue mold that happens in white pine during warm weather. You can leave logs on a landing because you can't get to them as the road washed out. It's just muddy. That takes them out of the market. Goes high value product to the home. Anyway, so I'll be really interested to hear from Oliver, but I think the technicalities of damage to forest crops, probably the damage to the forest crop itself is fairly limited during 23.
The loss of roads, bridges,
That
culverts.
infrastructure is certainly there.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to do the second round of larger infrastructure projects, because that's all encompassing, right? Sometimes we have multiple farms on one road or accessing one bridge, or we also have timber in the same area. So, but yeah, thank Oliver for me because he's participated in weekly meetings with me for far too long now. So,
Okay, so a specific, site specific. The farm in Kirby, 24, that was cut off from life. The road was gone, couldn't get their milk out and everything else. Was that covered in a different program or is that covered in this program?
So that's a nuanced question, and I don't know like the specific scenario, but what we're gonna see in some instances, because obviously farms are unique, right? But in that they have a work area, they also often live on the same land, and so FEMA covered some things, right? FEMA told us that they would specifically cover damages directly to the main residence, specifically getting the road back up to par for emergency services. But then any roads that led out to pasture or the barn wouldn't have been covered at all. So we have to break it down a little bit. But as far as infrastructure that wasn't covered by insurance or FEMA, yes, this program could cover it.
Sharon, this is a question for you. EGAP. Was that grants or loans?
Let Nicole tell us that it was.
With grants,
They were grants.
they were grants.
But somewhere else going, if you receive EGAP funding, does that exclude you from getting additional funding on this federal?
Does not preclude you. If what your application shows is that BGAP made you whole, then you wouldn't qualify, but BGAP only covered 20 to 30% of physical losses, so no one should have been made whole by BGAP. Yes.
We're good for the Intervale farmers. This should work really good for the veggie farmers in the Intervale and Lindenville and other places that were hard hit.
We hope so. I'm excited
And
for
the
it.
orchards and the venters.
Mhm.
Can you send us, so
Yes, go ahead.
can you send us an email when you find out that it's really approved? I mean, we won't be in session, but we still will be checking email. And I would like to be able to help let people know when we know there's really money. Because
Yes,
honestly, I've been telling them there's money coming for 2 years. And when we know it's really, really, really coming, that would, it might help my credibility,
Feeling more
honestly.
and more like a politician. every-
Well, I'm tired of breaking my promises. I mean, I don't make promises on behalf of the federal government.
You have that big garden down there in Westminster, right on the river. I don't know how much damage you
Allen
had.
Brothers, they had a lot. So did Harlow's. Yeah, they both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
send an email, and I know that my secretary, deputy secretary probably have a lot of your phone numbers too, so we can text as well, let you know.
I'm on the list for the email that goes out every Sunday afternoon from the agency. I'm not sure who puts that together, but it always includes an update on here's how to apply for some sort of grant.
Yeah, probably our agricultural development division takes.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. Is that, do other people get that email?
I don't.
No,
I signed up somehow, I don't remember how, but we could all do that. We knew how, I guess.
I can add that to my email.
Thank you, okay, good, yeah, yeah. Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Oh, appreciate you.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to take a break here because we're still, Bradley's working on a draft of the next draft of an amendment, which there'll be plenty of opportunity to talk about it. But let's take a short break until I can find him and.
Is our goal to, is that doing?
Yes, our goal is by ideally, we can